Today we'll be going over Chapter 10 in the Reluctant Welfare State, the Presidency of Bill Clinton. The rise of Bill Clinton. So Clinton's campaign career started early. He won class presidencies in high school and in Georgetown University while in college. Clinton learned from the inner workings of the Senate. Clinton earned his law degree at Yale. Clinton participated in the failed presidential campaign of George McGovern in 1972. The Republicans managed to cut taxes and social spending before Clinton took office in 1992 and 1996, winning despite Republicans' control of both houses of Congress. To the right, pictured above, is Clinton graduating high school back in 1964. The election of 1992. So Clinton won the Democratic nomination in 1992 due to his campaign skills, his adeptness at using mass media, contacts, and his ability to raise money. The campaign road was rocky due to his third-party candidacy of Ross Perot, a billionaire from Texas that preached the incompetence of Washington and promised to clean the system, much like our 45th President of the United States. Clinton borrowed many campaign ideas from his Oxford professor Robert Reich, believing that governments must start to adapt to becoming a global industry, also campaigning on healthcare reform. Bush failed to emphasize a strategy for reinventing the economy and lost many votes for this. This was basically the major reason that Clinton won, actually. While Clinton's campaign gathered steam over time as he promised to raise taxes on the affluent, and Clinton won the 1992 campaign by the narrowest margin since 1968, with California and New York carrying him to victory. However, both houses were controlled by the Republicans, allowing them to filibuster anything Clinton tries to do. And to the right is the 1992 election. The grim reality. Clinton had proposed contradictory policies during his campaign. He had promised to halve the nation's deficit. However, he had also promised to fund social investments and provide economic stimulus. Clinton promised a tax cut on middle-class citizens and had downplayed the need for tax increases. Clinton was stuck making one of two choices: increasing taxes or cutting spending on existing programs. Analyzing the budget process. A president will submit a proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year when they allocate how much money they want to put into each program that year. Federal spending is placed into two categories: entitlements and discretionary spending. Entitlements include AFDC, Medicare, Medicaid, SSI, and food stamps. Discretionary programs are determined annually by votes of the Appropriations Committee in each chamber. The demise of the stimulus package. In Clinton's economic package, he proposed two kinds of spending: an immediate economic stimulus and social investments. After heavy lobbying by Clinton, the House passed the stimulus. However, the Republicans filibustered until the stimulus was depleted of almost all its financial resources. The Congress also led a devastating battle on Clinton's social investments in the budget bill. The proposed $230 billion to just over $10 billion over 5 years. Originally, it was going to be $230 billion over 5 years. The fight for health reform. Clinton had campaigned on health reform, and that was one of his major campaignings. The American healthcare system was costly, absorbing about 15% of the gross national product in 1992, compared to most industrialized nations that only use 10% of the GDP. Bill Clinton put Hillary Clinton in charge of the health reform alongside Ira Magaziner. Instead of introducing new taxes for the health reform, Clinton decided to raise the tax on cigarettes and cutting the existing Medicare and Medicaid budgets. The fight for health reform. Clinton decided to go with a market-driven system instead of a single-payer system. And the single-payer system, which can be found in Canada, Britain, and many other European nations, the government pays the fees of citizens, leaving the government with extraordinary power over the medical system. Clinton's health care reform was never passed due to Republican propaganda. Clinton failed to pass health care reforms by 1994, which left a scar on his presidential term and could cost him the next election. During the 1992 campaign, Americans ranked the most serious problems in America as crime was ranked first. In 1993, Clinton's anti-crime plan was proposed. funds for 100,000 new police officers, new federal death penalties, and fewer appeals for death row inmates, along with a huge $22.3 billion bill. Clinton's only successful major policy completed in his first term was this anti-crime bill. Every other reform Clinton and his allies proposed, the Republicans shied. House Republicans take charge. The Republicans led a vast assault on Clinton's office and policies in 1993 and 1994, claiming that he was a big government guy that wanted to raise everyone's taxes. They accused Clinton of financial improprieties in Arkansas, known as the Whitewater Scandal. Republicans' talk show hosts also accused Clinton of sexual misconduct. Clinton proposed a plan to reduce the federal deficit in his first term. The Republicans portrayed him as a big spender and that Clinton wanted class warfare. Republicans gained a devastating number of seats in both Congresses in November 1994. Republicans also gained most of the nation's governorships. Many of the young uprising Republicans wanted to dismantle the great society that FDR had built, thinking it had ruined America's morals. When 1994 came around, the Republicans promised to complete the contract with America. So to the left is the Contract of America proposed by Newt Gingrich and the Republican Party in 1994. Two of the policies are cut off, but basically the gist of it is they wanted to take away a bunch of stuff from federal government, less taxes, kind of basic Republican stuff, really. This led to a major political confrontation in 1995 between the Republican and Democratic parties. Republicans wanted to also make a constitutional amendment requiring a balanced budget, but also to commit Congress to balancing the budget within 7 years. The Democrats argued that the only way these cuts were possible is if you cut all the social nets and benefits that were there to support poor and middle class people. The results of this confrontation was a long shutdown of the federal government because it could not pay its bills. Not only were large numbers of federal civil service workers laid off, but the entire government shut down its activities. As the shutdown continued, citizens started to criticize the large cuts and entitlements that the Republicans had demanded. Congress and the White House decided on a budget on April 24, 1996, which contained far lower cuts than the Republicans had wanted. This was considered a decisive victory for Clinton and helped him win the presidential election in 1996. Many women and minorities' rights were under attack in the Clinton era. Congress enacted a measure that made the use of threat or force against workers or clients of abortion clinics a federal crime. Many other barriers remained, though. Affirmative actions were threatened to be replaced, which affirmative actions have helped women and minorities find jobs for decades. Many books released during the Clinton administration targeted minorities. The Bell Curve by Richard Harrison argued that African Americans are naturally of lower intelligence than other races. The Bell Curve became a bestseller in the United States. Another book named The End of Racism was written by, I'm going to butcher this, but Dinesh D'Souza. This blamed cultural dysfunction as the main reason that African Americans are lagging the rest of the population when there were clear racism reasons that was happening. So budget politics can be relatively complex because of the jargon, budgeting procedures, and budget data that we've seen in this presentation. There are 7 factors that will raise the federal government's costs in the coming decades that we need to look out for. The aging baby boomer population with babies going down on average for each family, meaning there's going to be more old people, more money needed to take care of them. The budget deficits will grow that George W. Bush started. Increasing funding for retired federal workers, the cost of Medicaid, the cost of military spending, veteran programs, and environmental damage will all be major cost analysis for the federal government. Hope Scholarships in the EITC illustrates the hidden side of the American welfare system. Tax credits, deductions, deferrals, and exemptions. Altogether, this hidden side represents $600 billion in government spending. Social workers should be adept at informing their clients about these hidden resources. Many clients do not know about them. Without social workers' knowledge of the system for the EITC, which is the largest federal anti-poverty program for non-elderly, as many as 50% of the eligible families failed to apply for the program.